skålar många dyrt, kör musikdans. Mitt i smöret, lätt att hoppa på någon leverbröd. Står i hela hörn. Dags att droppa om det som en näbbad. Min chans är redan körd, nu är resten här. Sen vi kastar allt, tvärs på hela högen. Jag är penna, får väl lite sömn. Så jag passar på, eller ingen dröm. 24/7, 365 tänder på mig allt shit som jag släpper tänd. En taget en kväll, skriver en ny historia för de som väntar. Ringer inget alls, att du säger vad du tycker. Och hon är på spanet, disciplin är på lycka. Jag har tagit mig hem, jag hade kört, konstaterat det var årets kväll. Du var där, du såg dig själv, jag ser dig följa efter med blicken så fort jag återställer kvällen från igår. Man kramas glömmer på mig själv. Det var min namn, hon sa det du är fram, det var min dag. Försökte separera jävla klipp från alla de tankarna på att hon hinner ta. Men nu du kunde ha aldrig gjort det här, mer än jag alltid gjort det här. Och inte först nu som jag lever, jag alltid trott jag är. Dit fort det här, nu de stannar upp på gatan och säger hur stort det är. Måste visa kärlek hela tiden, folk vara ärlig hela tiden. Du vet, de här aldrig samma klocka på väggen är. Inte som att jag lyckas fatta poängen är. Så en del som att lampan slocknar för länge sedan. Jag hoppas att det syns någon dag. Det syns vad vi klart känner mig just nu. Tror nog bara att det finns ett svar. Det finns den av en till. Men jag överlever. Jag tror jag överlever. Gärna utan varning. Ingen tvekan om att hon är min aning. Hon är klart sagt vad hon vill ta. Så länge hon och jag var chilla. Om det nu fanns någonting, om det nu fanns någonting, tror det är sant det de säger om oss. Så vad fan är grejen om oss? Snälla kan de säga mig. Det är komplicerat, det är komplicerat. Det finns inget här att bjuda på. Det sällskap att du kan få just nu. Fokuserat på allt som hon vill ha. Hon är van att visa det. Hon är med, hon är med. Hennes swagger är med. Hon väljer mig specifikt för jag är hennes väg in. Varje gång vi går ut, hon lägger märke till oss. Se hur livet känns lätt här. Vi släpper verkligen loss. Hon är med, hon är med. Redan när vi var knyt. Soffan upp i min parsas liga. Jag löper i hennes liv. Så länge hon och jag var chilla har det bra. Om det nu fanns någonting, om det nu fanns någonting, tror det är sant det de säger om oss. Så vad fan är grejen om oss? Snälla kan de säga mig. Det är komplicerat, det är komplicerat. Det är inget här att bjuda på. Det är sällskap att du kan få just nu. Det är komplicerat, och allt som hon vill ha, hon är van att visa det. Det är komplicerat. Ingen vet vad det innebär, men det ordnar sig. Allt wanna säga är hur det står. Det är förmodligen rätt sent ikväll, men du går. Hon väntar på mig, min solutång. Bränner växter över betong. Hon är sexig utan några Louis Vuitton. Hon är underbar, vi är underbar med vårt understånd. Och även om allting känns bra just nu, fanns någonting, om det nu fanns någonting, tror du det är sant det de säger om oss? Så vad fan är grejen om oss? Det är komplicerat, finns inget här att bjuda på. Lite sällskap jag tycker på just nu. Det är komplicerat, och allt som hon vill ha, hon vill ha någon vi serverar dig. Det är komplicerat, finns inget här att bjuda på. Lite sällskap jag tycker på just nu. Det är komplicerat, och allt som hon vill ha, hon vill ha någon vi serverar dig. De kör oss med bil till mig. Om du går långt ifrån stan som tar inte hit mig. Har ingen kompis i stan, men jag döper min stil till mig. Rotar du varifrån varje eller läser vi till mig. Jag kan se mig nu, din mamma på plats, yeah. Din mamma tar plats. Girl, jag lever mig in för långsamt och snabbt, yeah. Vi går långsamt och snabbt, och le. Utan din framtida och tro. Och le. Utan din framtida och tro. Hon dansar till min låt. Du rör sig så väl, yeah. Hon har något jag vill komma åt, yeah. Men alltid får det well, yeah. Säg någonting som betyder något. Får bara komma svar, vad betyder det? Vet du säkert har något att skriva om. Hur har du med där du vill? När du vet vad du gör. Hon vet vad hon får hos mig. Hon tappar bort sig ibland, hon frågar om du har hos mig. Säg kom mig, vi står hos mig. Jag vill ha din släng till mig. Och hur du fixar ditt för mig, så du får poäng till mig. Jag kan se mig nu, din mamma på plats, yeah. Din mamma tar plats. Girl, jag lever mig in för långsamt och snabbt, yeah. Vi går långsamt och snabbt, och le. Utan din framtida och och le. Utan din framtida och hon dansar till min låt. Du rör sig så väl, yeah. Hon har något jag vill komma åt. Varje knapp som du vet om får mig helt ur balans. Och såklart att det blir tjafs. Varje konflikt, hela mig på plats. Jag borde säga pass och tänka syns för dig. Du tappar orden när du skymtar dig. Så här borde det klart det syns för dig. Efter allt vi gått igenom mig, samtidigt som det syns för mig. Hon dansar till min låt. Du rör sig så väl, yeah. Hon har något jag vill komma åt. Yeah. Nu vi chillar, nu vi tar det bara upp. Allt är redo för en stund. Det är som man lär sig, redan är så ung. Vi får dagen att gå runt, men jag är inte dum. Klart de säger de ska vara här en stund. Hon kommer fastna, tro mig, jag är inte dum. Det är som man lär sig, redan är så ung. Alltså skrapa upp en bunt, men jag är inte dum. Bara stanna upp, tänka efter för en stund. ung, vi får dagen att gå runt. Mannen jag är inte dum. Klart de säger de ska vara här en stund. Hon kommer fastna, tro mig jag är inte dum. Det är som man lär sig redan är så ung. Dags att skrapa upp en bunt. Mannen jag är inte dum. Möter upp min broder, han kom nyss från Köpenhamn. Det är något nytt som kommit över Öresund. Skippa tullen, möter upp honom i lugn. Klart jag bara pratar strunt. Mannen jag är inte dum. Inte som att få affären gå i lås. Jag finns till boss och chillar här med en gås. Tror du kommit undan medans jag bara ligger lågt. Det ständer jag får psykos. Mannen jag är inte blås. Det är lätt att flyga nu så länge man har flax. Träffar min connect idag, skänker några lax. Han har min rygg så benen slipper springa runt. Och när blicken varit tung, mannen jag är inte dum. Nu vi chillar, nu vi tar det bara ung. Alltid redo för en stund. Det är sånt man lär sig redan är så ung. Vi får dagen att gå runt, mannen jag är inte dum. Klart de säger de ska vara här en stund. Hon kommer fastna, tro mig jag är inte dum. Det är sånt man lär sig redan är så ung. Dags att skrapa upp en bunt, mannen jag är inte dum. Jag är inte dum, mannen jag är inte dum. Jag är inte dum, mannen jag är inte dum. Jag måste sluta bry mig om det bara för en stund. Tänka på att allting ska gå runt. För många nu som står bredvid mig har aldrig sett något för. Det känns som jag förlorar tid för varje ny sekund. Hoppas att du flyr mig för någonting jag redan gjort. De tänkte smått, kolla nu vi lever stort. Kom inte med förslag, nej. Som inte ens är jag. Tror vi pratar way back, nu är det way back when. Tror ni aldrig varit poppis här i jorden och var svensk. Har det någonsin funnits där när jag behövde en hand? Någon trodde alla svennar görs på en stund. Och du var han, jag kunde se det redan då. Så mycket jävla snack om allting hände redan då. Jag vet att vi var små men du känns mindre nu. Skrattar bäst och skrattar sist, jag pekar finger nu. Och slutar aldrig ringa nu, jag svär jag blir vid vänster hand. Vuxit upp vilket jag borde gjort för länge sen. Tror på kammaren idag men tror vi hänger sen. Jag är på väg till någon klubb, jag tror vi stänger sen. Så vet vad som gäller innan du bestämmer och slutar vid bord. Dina vänner då säger att inget är värt när man inte får tid. Fast jag vet mycket väl att det enda du känner just nu är ny. Så skäm inte bara och låt mig gå vidare på något med bakåt. Om du lovar att tyda på namn och ge mig den utan något trouble. Och vadå att det där med att vi kan vara kompisar? Jag tackar att det där med att vi kan vara kompisar. Känner på mig att du skulle tala för mig. Och sluta skrika baby, jag hör dig. Känner inte jag är skyldig att förklara var vi står. Tror inte du vet det som händer oss igår. Du vill att jag förklarar till dig så jag förstår varför inte du förtjänar att få mer än vad du får. Ja, jag gör min grej så hålla. Och fuck det där men go all the way. Vill inte få någonting förklara, hålla. Hur vacker du är så hålla. En långt ifrån att vara Mr. Right. Så
Okay, so live stream. Let's see if it's working. It stopped for a second, but now I think it works. Let me just check so that I am sure that it works. It's snowing. Misery. I mean, I like snow, but not now. Wait, just a little bit. Okay, live control room. It seems to be okay. So if anything happens with the timing of the audio, let me know. Sometimes it seems like I have to restart the encoder. I am not sure why, but kind of strange. It's still like a trial and error. This is the 5th live Q&A, so we're still trying to get this to work. Not entirely sure how I'm doing with all this, like the bit rates and all that. What is best? If anybody has any suggestions, anybody has any experience from live streaming, let us know what is the optimal like bit rates and the settings and all that, because we're still trying everything out. And so far so good, I guess. Okay, so somebody asked, let me see if it was from earlier. Let me just get these questions. Here we go. So somebody asked about lavalier microphones, so I thought I'd start there. I think the audio is a little bit loud. What? Health is good. Just need to check. For a second it said that it wasn't streaming. It's kind of weird how this goes on and off. Ooh. Okay, it says that it's okay, so let me know if it isn't. So, the lavalier. I used to use these with the Sennheiser G3 system. It is the more expensive Sennheiser mic, MKE2 EV. I don't know if that is the right. So it's a little bit more expensive, but this one is kind of good microphone though, but not as good as the Sanken COS, which I use nowadays. But when I used these, you could get these things, and now it's focusing on me. Let me see. Okay, so what you do is you use these to put the microphone into. Oops. Like so. So this one is so that you don't get scratches from your clothes and stuff. And then what you do is you put a double-sided adhesive tape. Like these comes in packages. I think this is Rycoat or something. I'm not sure. Rycoat usually does the best stuff. so let me see. You put this one on just with tape, and then you get, you know, adhesive tape on this side. So you had adhesive on this one, and you have it on the other side. And then you just put that on. You usually put that, as I said in the previous video, you put it, you know, right there, preferably. Now most of I think the lavalier mics, they aren't directional, so you could put them in this direction or you can put them in that direction, it doesn't matter. But it shouldn't be too close to the microphone. Certain ways, like in Hollywood, the hair and that sort of thing, have smallest ones because the smaller ones are more expensive. But then the one that I use today, you could do it even without this. You could do it. You could just take some tape and just tape it to your body or to your clothes, and then you put it on, and it shouldn't make that much noise. But you shouldn't just tape it up here. You should also tape the cord so that it's not moving so much, because that kind of can make it rumble a little bit. And I'm not a professional in audio, but I have worked with audio engineers, so I know how they do it. So I just copy whatever they do and try to do it decently. But then I know that they oftentimes they'll loop. I don't know where they loop it, but quite close to here. And the reason for looping it is so that, you know, it doesn't have tension and it can actually, you know, have a little bit of movement to it. It could be further down. I'm not entirely sure. So if somebody in audio is watching this, comment below. But then with the newer ones that I use, which is the Sanken Cos, one way to avoid the audio rustles that you get is to not put it underneath the clothes. And of course the easiest way is to use a directional mic and a boom operator, but often you don't have that. So if you're out in the wind, you might want to use these wind covers, and they look, you know, ridiculous. So then you need to think about clothes so you can hide it. That's kind of obvious, but still it's often how I avoid getting, you know, rustles. It's putting it outside, because you always risk, you know, the noise if you put it inside. But what you get when you put it inside the clothes, so on your body, for instance, you get wind protection from your clothes. But if you have big jackets, it's gonna sound, you know, mushed and that sort of thing, and you don't like that. So then you will probably not want to put it there. And one way to put it, if you have a shirt on. Now I don't have a shirt, but I have a hoodie, so I can show you how I usually do it. I usually loop it around the head, put it in somewhere, you know, where I can get it in, where it's not visible. And then I put it somewhere, you know, to hide it underneath the, let's say this is a shirt. So this would be, so you would have a shirt that goes down like so. You put it in here. So now this is going to be a lot of audio talk in the beginning, because there's so many ways of mounting a microphone. But bear with me. I think it's good. And then the other way, which I usually do now, is you have this adhesive tape. Adhesive tape is always, like, double-sided is always good. And this is like the invisible lavs that I had in the other, this what was in the audio video that I posted before. So check them out if you don't know what I'm talking about. But let's say, okay, you have a Sanken Cos, 11D I think they're called. What you do is you have this one, and this one is used so that you don't get, you know, rustles from the clothes. So you put this one on. You put this in the middle, like so. And then you put this adhesive tape, which has a hole in it for the microphone. So you have like a squared box in the middle, which you will pull out. So it's going to be totally open all the way through there. But then you have adhesive tape around it. So then you will get good sound and still, you know, have it less rustling from the clothes. But the same goes there. You put it underneath here is a good place to put it. But sometimes you can't, and then you try to put it, in a collar, or you try to hide it. Maybe you have like a shirt that you can, you have different colors, so you can have skin tone color on these too. But you can put it out through a black shirt, and it wouldn't be visible. But that's because these are small, so you should use the smaller ones, which are more expensive if you can afford them. But otherwise, you have to find a place where it's not visible, and one way of doing it is using a black one on black clothes or so. Okay, so hope that helps. That is how I usually mount them. But I think a good way, like it's a problem nowadays, I don't though. I think the issue I had with it before was that it looks like it's not documentary, but then I realized that nobody cares. Like people watching, nobody cares really. It's just you that are a filmmaker that trying to, envision this way of your film being totally documentary. That's what you have to drop, and nobody sees it if you don't act like it's supposed to be seen. Okay, so next question. Dark Horse asks, I'm a long-time photographer learning video, and as much as you think they are the same, it's very different, especially when understanding the editing process. Not really a question, I guess, but they are. I came from photography background, and I think they're very alike in certain ways, but they're two very different things when it comes to, the process of making a film is so much more a tedious task. It's like comparing it to music, for instance, which is usually smaller productions and all that. And I think that in that sense it's hard to compare the two. But I really think that even though, they're not so similar, more and more, because we're using the same cameras and that sort of thing, they're becoming more or less the same. But I guess you could say that the biggest difference is the process. And for instance, photography will always be the same. I have a lot, from still photography that I've taken into making videos, and I think that's only been good for me. Especially composition and all those things, but the process is different, and it's a very different process of pitching the stuff also, because you have to explain much more of a deeper story than you have if it's like a feature or a commercial shoot as a photographer. Okay, so Phil Brown, good morning. Good morning, Phil. I'm an indie filmmaker in Detroit. Red Wings, my favorite team. Niklas Lidström, Kronwall, best players. But I have some questions on some projects I filmed in Tanzania, and I don't know what you mean by this. How to got... I have no clue. But anyway, filmed in Tanzania, and then I was thinking about buying Blackmagic Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera, I think it is. Thoughts on the GH5 and its compression to others for quality of a workflow. I think I loved the Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera. I think it's a fantastic camera. Like, it's for the money, I think it's probably one of the best cameras that you can buy. The only issue with the camera is that, okay, you can have issues with it not having a monitor and viewfinder, but since I have a separate viewfinder, I never cared about that. But I had an issue with the fan noise. That's why we got the C300 Mark II, because that was the quietest, high resolution camera that you can get, that shoots similar, resolutions. So you have to try it out because I think it's annoying with the fan noise. But other than that, I think it's amazing. The pocket camera, the Blackmagic pockets in my camera, the issues I have with that one are like twofold. It's battery, it sucks. You have to have like 20 batteries to, do it, and you can shoot for like 20 minutes. That is an issue. I can live with that though. Micro shakes is an issue. I can live with that too. I think that camera is an amazing camera, but you don't have an audio capability of it. You don't have that in any Blackmagic cameras outside of the Ursa, I guess. But so you have to do dual audio. But I think the pocket camera is probably a better choice if you want to have a quiet one. But then the battery is an issue. Really, it is a big issue. Yeah. And then compared to the GH5 is an amazing camera. I have not understood completely why, but at certain times it gets a little bit noisy. And I would suspect that it's because of the ISO. So in that case, 800 ISO is, getting noisy already in daylight. So that's kind of strange, I think. But it could also be me shooting it in 1600 without, realizing I'm shooting in 1600. So I would have to check it out. Hello? Okay, so we have issues with the stream. I'm gonna restart it. Is working? Better sound? Stream is working. I think it's working. Let me just try it to make sure. Seems to be working. Okay. Anyway, that's how easy you restart a live stream. Where were we? Let me see. Is the audio good now? Yes, better, much better. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So where was I? It's GH5. So it can get a little bit noisy, and I don't really know what's happening to it. I think it's because I'm shooting ISO 1600. But besides that, like the quality of the codec and everything is fantastic. It's the same type of bitrate that you get out of the C300 Mark II, but it's not close to being as good. I guess there's a twofold thing. You have both a bigger sensor, which generates less noise in a C300, but you also have probably the noise reduction that the C300 is doing in camera is probably a little bit better, so it looks good even though it does noise reduction. I'm gonna try the GH5 also with noise reduction, because maybe it can solve the 1600 and above ISO ranges a little bit. But other than that, the camera is fantastic. I've shot the last 4 episodes with the GH5, and I also had it as a B camera on a commercial shoot recently, and they cut seamlessly to the C300. So it's an amazing camera that has pretty much everything. You have an add-on adapter that you can use for XLR, amazing. So you can rig it up to be a professional camera with XLR microphones if you want to, or you can have the little handheld style that I use when I vlog. So in that sense, it's a much more versatile camera than the Blackmagic smaller cameras. Okay, so hello, what's the hardest aspect editing that you find the most challenging, and what tips do you have to give for people new to editing? I think editing is really hard. It's such a tedious process. Editing can take so much time and energy out of you. So I've found the best time for me to edit is in the morning. The first thing I do every day is do all the editing. I'm pretty much not, responding to anything. I don't look at emails. I don't look at social media or anything. Once I'm here in the studio, I just edit. And I focus on that until, I get sick of it, which usually is around lunch or so. And then afterwards, I have tons of stuff that's other stuff that has to be done, and I do that then. So whatever time you're the most effective, that's when you should edit, because you have the most energy then, and you're the most creative, and you can focus the best at that time. That's probably the hardest aspect of editing, is to kind of get yourself in the right mindset to edit. Because it can be so boring to know that you have to go through hours and hours of material, and you're only looking at, structuring the project. You're logging the stuff before, or you're syncing stuff. It's so boring. So usually that stuff that's the most boring, that isn't editing, creatively editing, I usually put that to the afternoons. So I do the creative editing in the mornings, and then I do the more tedious process of like syncing and that sort of stuff. Later in the day, when it's just you just do it like a robot. And tips to new people editing: edit a lot, like do stuff all the time, because it takes hours and hours and hours to get good at editing. I guess it's kind of easy to start to edit to music. I would say avoid that. Try to tell stories. Try to develop, storytelling skills. Read books on narrative structures and storytelling, because that can help, immensely when it comes to editing and structuring stories and putting scenes together and developing a dramaturgy or a narrative that, pushes things forward. Yeah. Okay, so let me see. Next question. I love creating videos, and I see it's important to provide authentic social engagement for success. I don't have years of experience to teach. What can I consistently offer? I think this is a really good question, because it kind of touches on the problem with seeing a value in social media, for instance. Because if you don't have anything to offer, social media is the worst place to be. It just takes time, and it's just like distracting from your work, and you're doing shit instead of getting shit done. And I think if you're gonna do it in a way that engages people and all that, you have to find your thing, which is what you love, and focus on that. And then you try to get people interested in whatever you have that's something to offer. For some people, maybe it is just putting out your short films, and the social engagement, maybe it grows with time. For others, it's going to be like Q&As and live streams and meetups and that sort of thing. But I think one aspect of doing it could just be, being social with other YouTubers or filmmakers. Just, trying to create a community of creators. That's enough. It doesn't have to be, growing a big audience, even though that helps. It doesn't have to be the first step. First step could just be to meet people online that likes the same stuff, and to build a community that way. But I guess this also the social engagement. If you make a film, for instance, that's about some social relevant issue, that's easier to create social engagement around. And if you have something to teach, or if you have something that's uniquely you, then that's something that you could focus around. I guess that's going to be different for everybody. I mean, some people will do travel videos, other will do like business videos, and I'll do filmmaking videos. I could as well have done other stuff. I could have done photography also, but since I don't take so many photos anymore. I do take some, but I'm not a photographer in that sense. Like professionally, I don't work as a photographer anymore. So I don't tend to go towards that way. So it's more about my interest and what I like that I focus on at the moment. And that changes. So stay open to that. Casper, hello. Norwegian neighborhood. We're going to Ålesund in like next week, I think, to shoot. Yes, someone also pointed out, Simon pointed out, you should also, do what makes you, like focus on that, and no one else can offer that. Market the shit out of that. That's a good comment. Thought you were rolling a joint, lol. Yes. Not today. Looks different. Okay, so this is a conversation, so let me just go down. Anybody knows if the the A6300 Sony still has overheating problems? Answer. Let me see. What's the best camera under 1K? I guess this is a hard one because I really don't consider cameras under 1K to be, professional enough to shoot with on an advertising level or on a project that you want to have be launched, on television or that sort of thing. You can definitely, but it will make it much, much harder. Now, the pocket cinema camera, for instance, is in that price range, so that's a good camera to shoot on. But what you get when you shoot on a camera that's 1K is that you always get difficulties. You have to record dual sound. You're gonna have the battery problems, for instance. So I guess you need to kind of think about those things. And like all cameras in that price range, all of them can work. That's not an issue, I think, really. But the issue that you're gonna get is that you're gonna get compressed material if you don't use, for instance, a Blackmagic camera. And then you will have problems grading it. So you have to shoot most of it in camera. You have to set the look and all that in camera as much as you can with lighting and all that. And usually you don't have that time. So in that sense, save up to a more expensive camera because it can save you a lot of time. I know that a lot of people likes the A7S and all those, but they are compressed cameras, really compressed materials, so they don't do well when you grade them. They do great if you get the right look in camera. Then it's an amazing camera. But as soon as you try to push it, it breaks apart. And you have to be aware of those things in that price range. And Nathan asks, hey Johnny, any advice how I too can dress like a rejected 90s rapper? Yeah, just look. Magic Lantern for the Stand-on 6D. I think the Magic Lantern is amazing. I think I had it on the 5D and Mark III and II. The issues that I had with it was that it could create, I think this thing is gone, but you got these lines all across the image. That's like an issue that you had in the codec for a while. Those things will always happen since it's like a fluid development of Magic Lantern. Biggest problem I had was that it wasn't light sensitive. The sensors was too bad. The Canon 5D Mark III was an amazing camera if it wasn't low light. It's known to be a good low light camera, but it sucked if you wanted to compare it to even... I mean, it was on par with the pocket cinema camera, I'd say. But it performed great when you have daylight. It looks like a Red or a Lexa almost. So, I mean, it's an amazing feature on those cameras. I really used that for the whole process of making the Pearl of Africa. Was mostly 5D Mark III and the Magic Lantern. And because the Magic Lantern firmware was updating, certain things that I shot early on was maybe 2 years before the last stuff. It's much worse because of the codec and Magic Lantern being developed. So be aware of that if you use it, that it's going to develop during, you know, a period of time. But it's amazing. If it is available, I don't think it is, on the newer 5Ds, it will probably be amazing. But because of the light sensitivity in the 5D, I would guess it's same as the 6D. It will have the same type of issues with low light. So try it out. I'm a big fan of Magic Lantern. It's fantastic that it exists. Okay, so Martin Strauss. Hey man, how's your deal with Netflix? There's no communication. So the thing with Netflix is that, I guess if you get a Netflix originals deal, it can be great. Like, you can get so much support and they will focus on you and they will promote you. I wouldn't do the selling via an aggregator again, I think. I think that there are better ways to release a film. I think either go with a distributor that, you know, can push it out, that has, you know, passion for your project, or I think find alternative ways, because in our deal there's so much that limits us. It even limits me to talk about it. So I can't say much about it, like concrete things, because of the contract that I've signed. And those things annoy the hell out of me. I think it's really bad for Netflix. I think it's bad for us, for the project and everything. I think it benefits no one to have it that limiting. And be aware of those things if you try to sign with Netflix or anybody else, because everybody will probably have the similar type of agreement. Be aware that once you sell to them, it's their project until the rights goes back. So you don't have much say, you don't have much to do with the project, it's just there, and whatever happens, happens. I don't even know when it's going to end up in Sweden. It was supposed to end up in Sweden last year, it didn't come, so it's been on TV here anyways, but it's annoying that you have no communication. So yeah, that's Netflix. Yeah, this is also Dark Horse says, with 1K I would consider a more pro-used camera. Yeah, I'm guessing that you mean like a used second-hand type of thing. I think that's good too. I would, if I had little money, I would probably look at, for instance, 5D Mark III and Magic Lantern. That's a really viable option. Like, look at Pearl of Africa and see, like, that was mainly shot in that way, and it was enough to be in the cinema. When we had the premiere in Toronto on those fancy projections that, I mean, I guess this cinemas, they seat like 800 people or something. It is an amazing screen to watch your film at. It was sharper than it was in the edit and the post-production on those screens. So be aware that, like, that camera, it holds up on the big, huge cinemas with 800 people in Toronto at the best screenings in the world. It's, you know, the cinema is like state of the art. It holds up there, no questions asked. Like, everything looks so good. Better than most films that you see there. And still, you know, it is shot on a 5D and a Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera. So I guess that answers how you get the most out of 1K. Brick Media, which is the best budget camera to start out with? Pocket cinema camera, I'd say. Because it also focuses on, it forces you to learn how to handle a manual camera. And don't underestimate that. Cameras like these, it is a rare thing. Like, not everybody will know how to use a camera like this. And what the pocket cinema camera does is really, you know, it actually, these are real dusty. I should shoot on them more often. I don't so much anymore though. But pocket cinema camera has one really good feature that isn't, you know, anybody's plan or anything. But because it's such a limited camera, you're forced to do a lot of the manual stuff. And it works in a similar way when you learn to shoot analog. You learn to shoot in a similar way with film. So it's a really good way to learn how to make films and how to expose properly and manually and all that, because you can't use autofocus and you can't use, you know, higher ISO range. So you have to light stuff, and it forces you to learn more and push yourself. And yeah, that's why I'd take that one over anything else. So let's see, next one. Yeah, Sony relies heavily on accurate picture profiles. Their color science isn't great. No, and a big issue that I have with the Sony cameras is also the noise reduction. You even have, I'm not sure which cameras it is, but it's hilarious because you have such hard noise reduction that, you know, you lose stars when you know them, when you actually remove all the stars, so you don't... It's a really big. They do too much noise reduction that faces looks unnatural, and you know, you lose a lot of details. But then remove noise. This is how you do it in post also, but it becomes more unnatural when I see those cameras because they remove noise and then they add sharpening. Don't like Sony cameras so much, and also because of the compression. What's your pre-production before making a doc? It's kind of a fluid thing. First off, I talked a little bit about it in the storytelling episode topic, trying to find a topic or a TV series. I don't know what it's going to end up being. But let's say you pick a project. It has to hold. When you've set that, you have to start to look for like characters that can, like what type of characters, what type of stories are kind of showing that, the ID that you have. And then I show a time, I meet with, you do a lot. First meeting we went there, we met the character, she was perfect, and then we talked to her. We didn't know like how do you show the through something that isn't the predictable Syrian angle that everybody's doing. So then we looked at, okay, so what story do we have in Syria? So it's finding those type of ways to tell further. Next time we went back, we talked about her grandmother, and then we see, does it work, does it not work? And then we'll see in the film if it ends up being there. But you try to figure out those types of storylines, you know, like piece by piece. So then you go back, you edit a little bit, you watch the material, you go back, you do some more shooting. That's how I work, at least. So the pre-production is pretty much ongoing until the film is finished, because I always have, you know, stuff that I have to shoot pretty much. Let's see. Okay, so Simon asks, has the live streams made any difference to your analytics? Less or more watch time? I think it has pretty low watch time. And I think it has pretty low amount of views, but the interactivity and the comments is like super high on those. So I think it adds a lot of value in that sense. But I think like it has decent watch time, but I think the shorter videos have a much more solid watch time because I guess people stay through for longer. But I think the difference is that you can really develop, an audience and community in a different way through the live streams. And also the aspect of not having to produce something. So you just, start the live stream and then you do it. And once it's done, it's done. That's also a good aspect to have in mind, because if you're going to produce a lot of content, you need to have easy way of doing it. We're looking to go up to 5 times a week. We're trying now, now we're maybe at 3. I don't know if it's sustainable. I think it is. And then 5, I think next year, probably. So yeah. Yeah, so next question. How could I convert a Blue Jedi into a boom mic? I have no idea, because I don't know what a Blue Jedi is. So anybody that knows, comment. It's actually, Simon asked if it's a Hasselblad. It's actually, I guess it's this one that you asked. It's a Mamiya. Okay, need to hide my face if it's gonna focus. No, focus. 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 Yeah. Okay. Which films of yours are filmed on pocket cinema camera so I can see the result? Brick Media asks. I mixed so much during all productions that I make. It's always been a B camera for me. Let me think. Let me see here if I can get the Pearl of Africa film up, because then maybe I can actually say where it's a lot of pockets in my camera. Yeah, okay. So in the Pearl of Africa, for instance, most of the stuff in the hospital is pocket cinema camera. And the simple reason for that was that we couldn't film with a big camera, so it was easier to get away with the pocket cinema camera. Mainly I think that's like the big part that's shot with that camera, but then there's a lot of 5D in that film. Let's see, I don't know, with all the, I've uploaded so many videos on to the YouTubes, so it's hard to point out. Let me think about that and get back, because I can probably find certain films. I've done both like commercials with the pocket cinema camera too, but it's usually a mix. I've had the 5D before that I worked with advertising with the pocket cinema camera and the 5D, but then I was much lower budgets, like 3K budgets. So it's kind of hard to still do, like when you do 100K budget, you can't really use those cameras because you are expected to use more expensive cameras. Yeah. Audio is cutting. Is it still cutting? Okay. Yeah, check out the older vlogs. I think maybe the first ones, but it's so mixed, so it's hard to say. But maybe that's a good thing. If you can't see what's the pocket cinema camera and what's the 5D, maybe it's a good thing. You can't spot it, you can spot it. Otherwise, it's a mix. Okay, so Dust Productions. How do you find ambitious people to work with if you live in a small town in Sweden and don't want to move to Stockholm? YouTube. Amazing platform. I think that's the way. I think it's really hard to produce stuff if you don't think globally. I think it's hard in Stockholm. Stockholm is too small to produce stuff. Like even Sweden, I can't find anybody on YouTube to collaborate with on like bigger things in Sweden, because it won't, be a boost to the channel. There's a lot of people that are like talented and all, but there's not a lot of people that are established filmmakers on YouTube. The people that were, they kind of faded away and then, went on to something else. There's a lot of YouTubers in Sweden, but not filmmakers. And I think that's the biggest problem with Sweden, if we talk about Sweden. But if you look globally, there's so many people that you can collaborate with, and people are moving, everywhere, moving around. It doesn't have to be like you work with one person for a long time. You can just collaborate on certain things, and we hopefully are collaborating on a thing with somebody soon. I'm not gonna say, but hopefully, if all works out, we might do something. And that's a Canadian, so who knows? And earlier we worked with Mumbo from London. So it's kind of, I don't know, whatever you want to do, find that community online. That's all I can say. Like, if you have a passion for something, there is some place online that you can find that. I think also go to festivals, like that networking aspect of it is amazing. Do workshops that you can, like all those things where communities meet is a great way to kind of build communities online, even if it's a physical thing. Go to like conferences, and don't think just about Sweden, because if you're in a small Swedish town, it's hard. I come from a tiny Swedish industrial town, and I moved to Stockholm because, the job opportunities aren't in the smaller cities. So if you want to live off your craft, you probably have to move. It's simple as that. Like, even in Gothenburg, which is a big, small town in Sweden, you won't get a salary that is anywhere close to what you get in Stockholm, for instance. And, bigger cities will give you even more money to work with. Yeah, hope that helps. HLC Media, any tip for new YouTuber with a small number of subs? How to faster get more subs? First off, patience. Like, it takes a lot of time to get an audience. I don't know if you know about Daryl Eves. You probably know this, but otherwise go check him out. Because an interesting thing that I think a lot of people kind of like, they don't focus enough on this, is that all you need to put out good stuff all the time. But what you really need is like one viral video, and it can kick your channel. For us, we had one video that made us go from like, I don't know, 10K to 30K in just a matter of like 2 months or something. So it's often about this one video. And the thing is that one video is something that YouTube needs to pick up and push out to people. So in the first day that it comes out, you really need to make as much views as possible. So that means that you have to try to do a PR campaign or an online campaign to get so many views in one day as you can. Get it on Reddit, get it viral somewhere. And it's not about like doing viral stupid videos just for the views, because then you will get, subscribers that aren't interested in what you do. So it has to be, true to whatever you want to do in the end. I think you can see a lot of those, like, people get featured on somebody's channel and then they stop. Like, they get a boost and then nothing happens for years. And I think that's the risk of doing a viral video. But I think pretty much all channels that go from, they take off and go from little to big in the short amount of time, they have a viral video. In whatever level that is. It can be, like, for us, like 400,000 views, or it can be, 50,000 views. It depends on what level you're at, or millions of views. Yeah, so you need to put out stuff consistently. If you can go to daily, that will help you immensely. but we can't go up to daily because we have work to do with other stuff. So we're gonna try 5 times a week, but you have to push to get to 5 times a week, I'd say, and find a way that makes that sustainable. And you also said, I work hard on good videos, but then I can't upload very often, so I prefer to create more easy videos. That is true, but be aware that, you know, if you get, like, certain channels can put out 1 video a month and still go viral because they, you know, have the right type of community around them. They have the right type of other influencers on YouTube or whatever it is that also pushes them, and then they can get subscribers anyways. So it's not all about, you know, the quantity, but I think it's a big factor that you can control. By putting out more videos, you will get more recommendation from YouTube. So even if you do, you know, no fantastic viral video, uploading every day will exponentially make you more interesting to YouTube because you have more views, so they will push you more because of that. And yeah, use that to your advantage. Okay, I would like to see a video about the GH5 settings and focusing. I haven't said, if you haven't said yet, all the best. Yeah, I'm gonna try to use the camera for some more time, because like the focusing issue with it is like it's you can't really rely on the autofocus to be tracking anything if you don't watch what you're doing, because then you see when it fails. So for instance, for vlogging, I usually just use the autofocus to focus and then I turn it off, and that's the key to getting it, you know, to work. That is not a thumbs up on the autofocus, it is a thumbs down on the autofocus, but it works. But I'll make more of a review type of thing on that later, I guess. Have you ever considered doing a video for YouTube with your brother? It could be very interesting. Hear you mentioning him often. Yeah, usually he's the one that sees to this, that it works, you know, with the technical stuff. He was the one that called earlier. I'm thinking we're gonna do something like a Q&A also later, because we usually do stuff when we film. Like we're always shooting now. We actually sign into our contracts with advertising agencies that we can shoot behind the scenes and use it for the vlog. And that's a key thing, I think, in the end, that we can incorporate that into what we do. So we can go out and do commercials, but still, you know, document it here. We haven't started to push much of that out yet, so it's gonna come. He always shoots that, so it's gonna be interesting if we do a live Q&A, for instance, talking about that maybe. And then also because he is the producer to my films, so you can probably talk a little bit about that. And he's doing all the marketing basically for Creative North, so he has most of that. Like the analytics is his thing. Okay, so let's see, one last question. Wow, 5 a week is hard, but thank you very much for answering. 5 a week is hard. But I mean, when you see what one video, okay, so at our stage, for instance, if we release 1 video a week, you don't gain the momentum of the YouTube algorithm. So let's say we release once a week. I would guess we would get maybe 20 subscribers a day at best. If you upload 2 a week, that usually it goes up maybe by 40%, 30 at least, in subscribers. So then you can just count on that. Like if you upload 5 times a week, you speed up the process of building a channel a ton by doing that. And then if you spread it out, because the way the algorithm seems to work for now, because it can change any moment, but I think that once you spread it out, in the weekend, not so many people seems to be, engaging with our videos at the same level as they do in the week. So we're thinking of moving the video that we release now on like Friday and Saturday to Thursday and Friday. But I think one thing that we're gonna have to try out is to track if, for instance, having a gap with 2 days in the weekend, if that's a bad idea, if it would be better to have like 1 day gap in the beginning of the week or middle of the week and then one on the weekend. Because the way the algorithm seems to be working is that you drop off once you don't upload in interest. If you don't have, for instance, one video that they are pushing, because once they push a video, then you get a lot of recommendations, and once you get views on one video, hopefully you have created a lot of other videos that then gets on the recommendations of that video. So that's also a key factor, is to make videos that build on each other. So for instance, we make videos about Netflix, and then we follow up with the video on Netflix, not just because we want to make videos about Netflix, but so that they can be recommended to each other. So cinematic is one theme that we've been working on previously. So then we build up, for instance, 3 or 4 at least videos on that theme so that they can be recommended to each other. And if you do 5 a week, you have to think about those things. Like, how do you get the algorithm to optimize itself, or how do you optimize yourself to be more effective within the algorithm? Because it's all about that if you want growth on YouTube. It has nothing to do, I think, with collaborations and that sort of thing. I'm sure that people will argue differently, but I don't think that collaborations is such a big boost as people think. The YouTube algorithm is like the key to success. If you can get recommended by YouTube, your channel will just take off. And it's what you do once that happens. Once you take off, you have to kind of build on that. You have to release new videos on the same theme as that to get more recommendations. What you essentially want is to get all videos that are recommended on that popular video to be your videos. I don't know, most of you who are YouTubers probably know this, but it's a big thing to try out, and by uploading 5 times a week you learn 5 times more, because you only learn from uploading. I don't think you can be a YouTube specialist or analyst or any expert if you're not a YouTuber. It's just impossible. Things are so advanced. Like a 12-year-old know more than any marketing person working on an agency for social media. Any 12-year-old that is a YouTuber know more. So become a YouTuber, become an expert on YouTube, and then just upload 5 times a week or more. Okay. Gonna be it for this week. Yeah, I'll save these questions. I'll answer them on the next session. So thanks for dropping in. Next week again, one more. Ask questions in this one and I will take them into the next one. Okay, see ya.